Welcome to Ease English Podcast.
Imagine holding a piece of paper in your hands. It's yellow, fragile, and smells like old perfume. And as you read the faded ink, you realize this message was supposed to change someone's life 50 years ago, but it was never delivered. What would you do?
I think most people would walk away, but the person in our story today didn't. Welcome, everyone, to a very special episode. I'm Jimmy.
And I'm Anna. Welcome to the brand new series on the Ease English podcast, Learn English Through Stories.
We are so excited about this playlist. Today, we are going to tell you a beautiful, suspenseful story. But before we begin, Anna, let's quickly explain why we are doing this. Why learn English through stories instead of just reading a textbook?
Oh, this is my favorite part. When you read a list of vocabulary words, your brain is bored. It forgets them in 10 minutes. But when you listen to a story, you want to know what happens next. You get emotionally invested.
Exactly. And scientifically, when your brain feels suspense or emotion, it releases dopamine. Dopamine acts like a save button in your memory. So when you hear a new English word wrapped inside a mystery, your brain saves it permanently. You don't have to memorize it. You just feel it.
So today, just sit back, relax, and let the story do the work. Don't worry if you don't know every single word. Jimmy and I will help you along the way. Ready, Jimmy?
I have my coffee and I'm ready. Take us away, Anna.
Our story begins in London on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. A young woman named Clara was walking down a narrow street when she decided to escape the rain. She stepped into a small, dusty vintage shop. It was the kind of store packed with old clocks, wooden chairs, and racks of antique clothing.
A thrift store.
Exactly, a thrift store, a shop that sells second-hand items. Clara loved thrift stores. She walked over to the coats, and her eyes landed on a heavy, dark green wool coat from the 1960s. It was beautiful, but it was tattered at the bottom.
Tattered, that's a great word. It means old, torn, and in bad condition.
Right, the edges were tattered, but Clara loved it. She bought it for £10 and took it home. That night, she decided to sew the tattered edges of the coat. She sat on her couch, cut open the bottom lining of the coat, and reached her hand inside to pull the fabric straight. But her fingers brushed against something stiff. Pause. It wasn't fabric. It felt like thick paper.
Something was concealed inside the coat?
Yes, concealed, hidden perfectly inside the lining. She pulled it out. It was a sealed envelope. The outside just had one word written in beautiful cursive handwriting: Arthur.
No last name? Just Arthur?
Just Arthur. Clara carefully opened the fragile envelope. Inside was a letter dated November 14th, 1972. It was written by a woman named Evelyn, and the letter, Jimmy, it was absolutely heartbreaking.
Slowly, what did it say?
It said, Arthur, I am sitting at the train station. If you still want to build a life together, meet me at the clock tower at noon. If you do not come, I will get on the train and I will never return. Yours, Evelyn.
Wow, it was an ultimatum, a final chance for love. But the letter was still sealed. It was concealed inside the coat.
Exactly. Arthur never got the letter. He never knew she was waiting for him at the clock tower. For 50 years, this piece of history was trapped in the lining of a dark green coat.
Consider the gravity of that. 2 lives completely changed because a piece of paper slipped through a tear in a pocket. Anna, this is the perfect example of the word cryptic. The letter didn't give Clara much to go on. It was a cryptic message, mysterious and difficult to figure out.
It was highly cryptic. No last names, no city mentioned, just the year 1972. Most people would throw it away, but Clara couldn't sleep. She became obsessed with finding out what happened to Evelyn and Arthur. So her pursuit began.
Her pursuit, her search. She started investigating.
Yes. First, she went back to the thrift store. She asked the owner, who donated this green coat? But the owner just shook his head. He said, I buy clothes in bulk from estate sales all over the country. I have no idea. Clara had hit a dead end.
Let's pause right here. For our listeners, to hit a dead end is a fantastic idiom. Imagine driving down a road and suddenly there is a wall. You can't go left, you can't go right, and you can't go forward. In English, when an investigation or a project completely stops because there are no more options, we say, I hit a dead end.
And it felt like a massive dead end, but Clara refused to stop. She started to decipher the tiny clues in the letter. Jimmy, do you want to explain decipher?
Absolutely. To decipher means to look at a puzzle or a code or something very confusing and figure out the hidden meaning. It's like being a detective.
Exactly. She looked at the paper under a bright light. She noticed a very faint stamp at the top of the page. It was the logo of a hotel, the Grand Royal Hotel, Edinburgh.
Ah, so she wasn't in London when she wrote it. She was in Scotland.
Yes. Clara immediately called the library in Edinburgh. She asked them to look at old newspaper records from November 1972. She was looking for a wedding, an obituary, anything with the names Arthur and Evelyn. Days turned into weeks. She spent hours on the phone. And then she found it.
What did she find?
A warm and emotional, an engagement announcement in a 1973 newspaper just a few months after the letter was written. The names were Evelyn Hayes and Thomas Wright.
Thomas, not Arthur.
Not Arthur, because Arthur never showed up at the clock tower. Evelyn got on the train, heartbroken. She tried to move on, and she did get engaged to a man named Thomas. But 2 weeks before the wedding, Arthur found her.
He tracked her down.
Yes, he told her he had gone to the thrift store to buy a heavy coat for the winter because he wanted to travel to find her, the green coat. But he never put his hand deep into the pocket. He never knew the letter was there. He just knew he loved her. He begged her to take him back. She broke off her engagement with Thomas, and she and Arthur have been married for 49 years.
That is the definition of serendipity.
Oh, that is a beautiful word to teach our listeners today. Serendipity.
Yes, serendipity is when something incredibly beautiful or magical happens by pure chance. It wasn't planned, it was just a happy accident. Finding that letter 50 years later and returning it to a couple who found each other anyway, that is pure serendipity.
Evelyn and Arthur invited Clara inside for tea. They framed the letter and hung it in their living room, a reminder that sometimes what is meant for you will always find you, even if it takes 50 years.
What a fantastic story. Let's do a quick recap of the English we learned today for our listeners. We learned tattered, which means torn and old.
We learned concealed, which means hidden completely, like the letter in the coat.
We learned about hitting a dead end when you can't go any further in a search or a project, and a decipher, to figure out a hidden code or mystery.
I smiled. We learned about closure, which is the feeling of an ending or a resolution. And finally, serendipity, a beautiful, happy accident.
Listening to a story like this builds your attention span in English. It forces you to listen to the melody of the language, to feel the suspense, and to connect the vocabulary to real human emotion. That is how you achieve fluency.
We want to hear from you. What was your favorite new word today? And have you ever experienced serendipity in your own life? Tell us your stories in the comments below.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Ease English podcast so you never miss a story.
Thank you for spending your time with us today. Keep learning, keep listening, and we will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.
Take care, everyone.